Good morning. Oops. Good morning. Good morning.
Good morning.
Good morning, everyone, and welcome to the Unitarian Universalist Fellowship of Laguna Beach and our live service broadcast this morning. Thanks for joining us. My name is Donna McCartney, and I'm honored to be your worship associate today. Today, the title of our service is Hope in the Midst of Despair. We will light our chalice in a minute. If you haven't already done so, and you would like to light a chalice with us, please go get your chalice ready. In each heart lives the flame of truth, bringing warmth and light, hope and inspiration to the human journey. Lighting our chalice on Sunday mornings is a reminder of that inner flame and of the need to nourish it and share it with one another. We gather this morning as people of faith with joys and sorrows, gifts and needs. And we light our chalice as a beacon of hope in these unsettling times and in celebration of the life that we shared together, even during a pandemic and protests against deadly racism. We're delighted to have Tina Summers lighting our chalice this morning. Tina, who is the mama of Tucker, has been a member for the last several years, but she also used to bring her now grown-up children to our fellowship for preschool years ago. Tina has just lit the chalice for us, thank you, and light yours at home if you choose. For the wonder and inspiration we seek from sun, stars, and all the lights of the heavens, we light this chalice. May the light of understanding illuminate our darkness. May the warmth of caring bring us healing and peace. We are the warmth. We are the light. Please read with me our centering thought for the day. It's adapted from Faith Rocket. The words are on your screen, and they will be in a second. And Dawn's going to unmute you so that we can hear each other read. So as soon as we have those words for the centering thought up, we will do it together. We gather this morning in the spirit
of fierce hope in the ancient practice of community, in the fresh fiction of this hour.
Let us dare to give ourselves over to the spirit power of hope. In that awareness toward that purpose, let us worship together. We're delighted to have our music director, Carole, singing and playing for us this morning. We're going to be muted while Carole sings and plays adapted hymn number 95, There is More Hope Somewhere, an African-American hymn. Please feel free to sing along as you choose, hymn number 95, There is More Hope Somewhere. Carole?
Hi. So we're going to sing There's More Hope. Actually, it's More Love Somewhere is the name of the song. But we changed up the lyrics a little bit. Donna asked to change them up a bit to go along with the service this morning. So I'll do my best to give you the cue word. It's very simple. It's either going to be there is more love somewhere, there's more hope somewhere, there's more peace somewhere, there's more joy somewhere. So the first verse and the last verse will both be there is more hope somewhere. So here we go. There is more hope somewhere. There is more hope somewhere. I'm gonna keep on till I find it. There is more hope
Beautiful. Thank you so much, Carole. We love your selections and when you play for us, it's fantastic. So there's a short affirmation that I invite you to read aloud at home with me. The affirmation is on the screen. It'll be on there. Here it comes. Love is the spirit of this congregation. Oh, can we unmute everyone, Dawn, and then they can say it with us? We can unmute everybody. Well, I'll just do it then. Love is the spirit of this congregation, and service is its law. This is our great covenant, to dwell together in peace, to seek truth in love, and to help one another. All right, great, thank you. Okay, so Desmond Tutu said, hope is being able to see that there is light despite the darkness. It's our job as Unitarian Universalists to be that light in the world. UUs accept you for who and what you are. We're a welcoming congregation with membership open to all. We subscribe to no one single religious creed, but have gathered a set of principles that guide us as we build a religious community together. Even when we cannot be together physically, we are together in spirit. Our minister is Reverend Lee Marie Sanchez. Before the pandemic, she was with us twice a month, once to provide a sermon, and an additional Sunday to be together with us in worship. Since our fellowship, the building is closed, she's been Zooming with us every Sunday. We owe Reverend Sanchez a debt of gratitude because she's going above and beyond for our community during these pandemic times. Here she is, Reverend Lee Marie Sanchez.
As I always do, I say good morning to our friends, our members, and our guests. And this morning, I want to just tell you how grateful I am. I'm grateful for Donna and for Dawn to provide us with this opportunity for a Zoom worship once again. And it made me think how grateful I am for Zoom. Zoom is an amazing entity, if you will, that allows us to be socially connected while physically distanced. And it reminded me of something that's really important to me I thought I would share with you. Many years ago, about 20 years ago now, I was a chaplain in renal dialysis in a great big hospital in Tacoma, Washington. At the end of my time there, I was moving on to do a hospital residency in a town about 2 hours north of where I was located. So I had to go and say goodbye to all of my patients, and I saved the best for last. There was one woman who I dearly came to love. She was one of the mothers of the Abyssinian Baptist Church that was located right next to our hospital. And I would go over and hear her sing. I went just to see her hats, I think, more than anything else. But she was just this amazing woman who I think I learned more and was more inspired by her, having been on dialysis for many years and always having a wonderful attitude about life and lots of visitors when I would go to see her. And when she heard that I was leaving, she said, "Honey, I want you to put your hands up." So she said, "No, you have to put them up like this." And I said, "Okay." And I did. And then she said, "I'm putting my hands over your hands, and God's hands are going to be over my hands, because the road that you're taking, those 2 hours drive in the rain, in the fog, in the freeway traffic, night and day, 24 hours I was on call, are dangerous. But I want you to know that I'm with you, and God's with you." And you can translate that into anything you want to. Love is with you. The universe is surrounding you. And when I get in my car still, especially if I'm going to take a long journey, I put my hands on the wheel and I think of the mother with her hands over my hands, and I think of love on top of my hands. And so to me, that's like Zoom. It's virtually. She was with me. She's still with me. In fact, I don't even know if she's on this earth anymore, but she's still with me. Zoom is amazing, and we are Zooming more and more all the time. We have more events and more activities coming up. This last Wednesday was our first Wednesday night at the movies. I remember originally Peggy Mears, our president, had said, "Why don't we have a movie group?" And then when I saw that Just Mercy, the film about Brian Stevenson and his work with the Equal Justice Initiative, the film was going to be available for the month of June. And I talked to Don, and Don got right on it to make sure we had an opportunity to, by Zoom, share this movie with everybody that wanted to join us. So we let the people at the Tapestry congregation know, and between the Tapestry congregation and our UUFLB, we had 30 people watching Just Mercy this last Wednesday night at the movies, and it was awesome. It's a deeply moving film. And not only that, but after the film, we had a discussion group, and they did not want to leave. We had to push them out the door at 9:30. So we decided it was so popular. In fact, we knew that this was going to be an important event for us. We thought it would take some time to grow, but it didn't. We had nearly 30 people on our first night. So this coming Wednesday is our second in our series, and this is continuing a racial justice theme. This film is The Great and Mighty Walk. I have not seen it. I'm very much looking forward to it. It's a 1996 documentary narrated by Wesley Snipes, and it chronicles the life and work of Dr. John Henrik Clarke, PhD. The description is a young African-American's quest to learn his place in world history. Dr. Clarke is attributed with bringing of Black studies programs into university curriculums. If you are a fan of U.S. and world history, this will be a fascinating story for you. So you will see the Zoom number for that in a number of places. We hope that you can join us, and you can be with us, and we can be with you virtually. And if it's any assistance to you, the next time you get in your car or you're just thinking about a journey that you need to take, I invite you to know that my hands are on your hands, and God's hands, love's hands, are on you virtually. May it be so.
Thank you so much, Lee Marie. That's a powerful message. Appreciate that. So now it's time, if you are so moved, to briefly share a joy or sorrow. Ours is a sharing community where our joys are amplified, and a caring community where our sorrows are lessened. This is not a time for announcements, but rather a moment to express something in your heart. If you have something to share, please raise your hand. We'll call on you and unmute you when it's your turn. So if you have a joy or sorrow you'd like to share with us, now's the time to raise your hand. I'm going to pop through here. Oh, Mike. Go ahead, Mike. You're still muted.
All right, how about now?
There you go.
Okay. I have a sorrow and a joy. The sorrow is after 26 years working in the same company, it will come to an end on July 31st. And the joy is shortly thereafter, I'll be moving to Maryland to be with Patricia.
That's wonderful. Thank you, Mike. Thanks, Mike, for sharing. Okay, so I'm looking for some more hands. And so, anyone else have a joy or sorrow they'd like to share with us? Okay, go ahead. Yes, please. Can you go ahead and start talking?
Okay.
We'll see if you. Yes.
I have a concern for my dog, Matt. Just got back from the animal hospital with kidney failure, and he's on special food. He's barely eating yet, so I'm hoping that he will live a couple more years.
Okay, thank you for sharing. We'll keep your dog in our prayers and your situation. Other joys or sorrows?
Morning. My 10-year-old granddaughter spent the last week with us, and it was a little challenging energy-wise, but it was wonderful to have a young person with enthusiasm, energy in the house. We had a really good time, so that was my joy.
All right, thank you for sharing your joy. Peggy, you have something for us?
I do. It's very important. Today is my grandson, Henry David Gorman's 5th birthday. I'm going over in the afternoon. And I feel like we've been talking about him turning 5 for a really long time now, but the big day is here and I'm so excited to see him.
Well, happy birthday, Henry. Thank you for sharing.
Thank you.
All right. Any other hands of joys or sorrows? I saw Tina. Oh, go ahead. Yes. We can't hear you. Can you talk a little bit louder? Or maybe unmute.
Hold on.
Okay. I'm not sure who this is. Sorry.
I'm trying to get to Annie Nelson, but the computer is not letting me spotlight you, Annie.
Oh, Annie.
There we go.
Oh, okay. Annie?
Okay, hi, thank you. Yes, this is for my sister, Lisa Luddy, and her family. There's a lot of problems with her daughter-in-law and her granddaughter, and we're both very worried about the safety of her granddaughter. So for the universe to hold them in prayer and let the situation resolve peacefully.
All right, thank you for sharing. We will definitely keep them in our prayers. Thank you. Anybody else for joys or sorrows? Did we get everybody who wanted to share today?
Hey!
There you go. Hi, kid. How you doing?
I have a joy to share that started out as a worry. So my theater company has been trying to figure out how we're going to stay afloat this summer because, you know, we have to social distance, but it's a theater company. And I helped them create an online virtual setup, and we started last week. And when I say we, I mean I'm like running the whole project with a technician. And we didn't know how it was going to go, and it was just terrifying. We didn't know if we were going to get the numbers. And my joy is that not only did the camp go well, but we ended up with people from all over the country. So much to my surprise, we were dealing with different time zones. I'm like, let's take lunch. And one of my kids said, it's 8:15, I'm in Hawaii. And we had other people who were like in Atlanta and people who were like in Europe. And it was just so cool to see all of these theater kids who've been restless and trapped and thinking they've all been overwhelmed with Zoom, but our whole process is about doing a Zoom class where they're not allowed to sit down. And we did it in like half the time we normally did, and everybody was happy. So I'm just really grateful and relieved that we're able to bring something useful to them on this medium that's letting them get some of their energy out in a positive way. So that's my joy this week.
All right. Well, thank you for sharing your very hopeful thought. AJ, do you have something for us?
Yeah, I do. I have a sorrow and a joy. So the sorrow, and I'll see if I can hold this. So this is my daughter, Sierra. I don't know if you can see it, but she's standing in front of a police officer in Sacramento. That was about a week ago. And so my sorrow is that she's having to fight the same fight that I had to fight, my father and my grandfather and his father before him. The other sorrow to go along with that is that the day after she spent hours peacefully protesting, peacefully looking peace officers in the eyes for uncomfortably long periods of time, a CHP officer pulled his gun on her and pointed it at her as if to say, "We see you." And my sorrow is that she's having to fight these battles that we should have won a long time ago. My joy is that for the first time in my 56 years on this planet, I'm seeing white people all over the world stand up and say Black Lives Matter, and that she's not alone in that, that she's not surrounded by just people who look like her, but there's people of every color of the rainbow, and that we just got to keep this pressure on to dismantle systemic racism and let love win. So that's my joy, is that there are people standing up saying we got to love each other. So just keep my daughter in your prayers, please.
We will, AJ. I'm so sorry that happened to her. And that actually, our service today is all about this exact topic. And I'm glad you ended with the hope for the future that we're going to solve this problem now. Now that we have more people finally waking up to the problem. All right, did we get everybody? Looks like we've. I'm sorry, Tina. Looks like Tina had something.
Hi, am I muted or unmuted?
You're good.
Okay. This morning I was trying to get a hold of my son, and he called me. He goes, "Mom, I'm in Montana." And it was like, what? So Lee Marie, he won't be calling you this afternoon. He flew up to see a friend of his from the time he was about 18 with a friend from first grade. They both went to Montana because evidently the fellow's having some depression problems. So it's good to know that your children have learned something about taking care of each other. And I'm very happy for him.
All right, Tina.
I hope it goes well.
Thank you so much for sharing with us, Tina. We appreciate that. And I think I did get all the hands now. I hope so. In any case, we're going to go ahead and move on at this point to talk about the mission, how the mission of our congregation goes on, even though we're not together. The costs that go with that mission continue, even though we can't pass our offertory basket. And most of us pledge to give a monthly or yearly amount of money for the mission of our fellowship. In the coming weeks, you will be asked to make a pledge for the upcoming fiscal year. You're now going to see the screen, or you're seeing the screen right now that has information about how you can help us with our mission for world peace and social justice. So please give generously and with love. You should also know that the links to both the Tisley site and PayPal are in the email that was sent to you to let you know about this service. So it's easy to click on the link and set it up. If you are not receiving emails, click on the chat button and leave us your name and email address, and we will keep you in the loop. So this screen will stay up for a few minutes for those who need more time to access it. It's not going to come on at the end like it usually does. It's going to leave it on for a long time right here in the middle. So while this offertory screen is up, I want to talk to you about our service, Hope in the Middle of Despair. Right now, the coronavirus is still spreading across our nation. We have lost more than 115,000 lives, and the opening up of the economy and the massive protests around our country may cause it to spike again. 115,000 people in America and over 400,000 people around the world are dead. And we know that many more will die before COVID-19 is under better control. Families are in despair, especially families of color who are disproportionately affected by this loss of life. Despair is roiling our nation. People are also in despair about the violent deaths of people of color at the hands of police and those who are threatened with it, like AJ's daughter. They are in despair about institutional racism that has afflicted our nation from the beginning. They are in despair because this racism causes less African American opportunities for education, jobs, incomes, generational wealth, health outcomes, and many other impacts of our society. Despite all of this despair, I want us to talk about hope today. What is happening right now that's giving us hope for the future? Let's ponder those possibilities today. So Carole is now going to play another song for us, and it's called I Hope You Dance by Mark Sanders and Tia Sillers. So we will all be muted, but feel free to sing along from home if you like. Carole? Wow, that was so beautiful, Carole. Thank you so much. It gives us hope for a better day with a beautiful song like that. So now it's time for our meditation. Let's draw inside ourselves as we meditate together. If you want to join us, you can close your eyes, relax in your chair, put your feet flat on the floor, shoulders back, hands and arms relaxed. Take a deep breath in through your nose and out through your mouth. Take another deep breath in through your nose and out through your mouth. Now follow the movement of your breath. Let's share a quiet moment of meditation as we strive to find hope in a despairing world. All right, and thank you very much for joining us, those who did it. It almost sounded like there's birds chirping in the background towards the end. So now it's time for our responsive reading. It's adapted from Leonard Mason, number 70 in the Gray Hymnal. The words will be on your screen, and I will read the words in regular print, and you'll read the words in italics when it's time for you, when it's your turn. So we're going to unmute you so that we can all hear each other when it's our turn to read. I will go first. We affirm
I'm going to invite everybody to unmute themselves, actually, because I can't do that on this machine. So they're going to have to unmute themselves, Donna. I'm sorry.
Okay, so if all of you can unmute yourself right now, because technical difficulties, Dawn's having trouble unmuting you all. And looks like many of you are still muted. Let's see. Tina's still muted. Jim and Teresa are still muted. Barry, you're still muted. Okay.
This is Peggy.
Right. So I think a lot of us are muted, so we will go ahead and get started. Are you ready? We affirm the unfailing renewal of life.
Rising from the earth, reaching for the sun, all human beings will strive to expand from despair to hope.
We affirm the steady growth of justice through peaceful protest and recognition of our common humanity.
Rising up and protesting together to fight for fairness, respect, and the inherent dignity of every human being.
We affirm continuing hope that out of the depth of our despair, our nation's hearts and minds will change.
We demand laws to be changed and policies put in place so a more just society can be formed.
All right, so now it's time to talk about finding hope in the middle of despair. So the UU principle, I think, follows along with our theme this morning, is the first one. Unitarian Universalist congregations affirm and promote the inherent worth and dignity of every person. When we truly believe that principle and put it into action every day with our behaviors, we will create the world we want to live in. Here are some signs that I see of hope in the middle of this pandemic. We're going to do pandemic first, then we're going to talk about the despair of the pandemic, and then the despair of deadly racism. So here are some signs I see in the middle of this pandemic. I feel hope that the scientific community in the world is working very hard to find a vaccine for COVID-19. Progress looks promising. I feel hope because people are figuring out how to make things feel safer than they felt back in March and April when our country was in panic about it. Everyone needs to cooperate so that we all feel safe. I feel hope because people who are older and with compromising medical conditions are becoming more skilled at navigating this coronavirus world. I feel hope because the economy, while in recession, is showing signs of improving. I see hope because we have not yet seen the same kind of spike across the country that New York experienced in March and April. The hospitals were overwhelmed, our medical staffs were greatly stressed, life and death decisions had to be made because of limited resources. Although rates of infection are still climbing up, they're not up in some of the states that you might expect them to be up, like Georgia or Missouri, that opened up early or were not practicing safe social distancing like other states. These states and others disregarded medical guidelines for reopening and wearing of masks and physical distancing. Unfortunately, many protesters are also not following these medical guidelines either, although lately it seems like more are putting their masks on, which I feel good about. Cases, I'm hopeful about. Cases are climbing, and it's still too early to tell if we're going to spike severely again like we did before. But I have hope that whatever this virus throws our way, we will figure out how to manage it. So I also feel hope in the middle of mass protests caused by deadly racism. I feel hope because the world's attitude toward racism is changing. We were shocked into watching a policeman, with the help of other policemen, murder a Black man. Everyone knows that this way of treating a human being is beyond unacceptable. White people are finally realizing what Black people have known all along, that the policing model we follow is destructive to Black communities and must be changed. It's not just policing that needs to change. Americans are at last realizing that racism isn't only about policing, but about, more importantly, how we think about and behave toward people of color. The policies and the ways of running our institutions is racist and needs to change. This has been going on since the beginning of our nation, and we are finally waking up. Why do we put so much money into policing and jailing people rather than in providing social services that can help them? Why are there so few African Americans in leadership in business, government, education, academia, and many other areas of our society? Why is our world set up in a way that generally benefits white people and not all people? The world is rising up and proclaiming that we are unwilling to tolerate these behaviors and unanswered questions anymore. We won't tolerate them anymore. I have great hope that people who seek social justice, easy for me to say, social justice like us, are finally in the majority. I also feel hope because people are demanding that all the symbols of racism, like Confederate flags, statues, military base names, and others, be relegated to their proper places in the trash bin of history. Maya Angelou said, "When you know better, you do better." I feel hope because more of the next generations, after the baby boom generation, see people of color as equal to people of no color. This growing attitude gives me hope for the future as people demand equal justice under the law. And I feel hope because plenty of white people are now protesting Black Lives Matter. They're protesting for Black Lives Matter. They realize they are part of the problem if they aren't working for the solution. So now we're going to take turns to find out what signs of hope you see as we move on from the depths of our despair with these two issues. Remember, this needs to be a hopeful comment, not a despairing one. If you have something to share, please raise your hand. We will call on you and unmute you when it's your turn. Who would like to go first? Would anyone like to share a hope that they see, even though it seems pretty disastrous between the pandemic and racism and the uproar in our country?
I'll go.
Okay, Don.
I raised my hand too. I'm just gonna echo what AJ said at the beginning of the service, I'm just very hopeful in that I've witnessed what I feel is a very historical shift in the attitudes of the majority in this country, and in all of the protests in Los Angeles and Atlanta, and the peaceful protests, when they marched across the bridge in Selma, it was almost 100% Black. It wasn't all Black, but it was almost all Black. And all of these marches are almost the exact opposite, where the numbers actually reflect the population. So that's very hopeful to me.
All right, thank you, Don. Anyone else want to share? Raise your hand so we can see you if you do. Oh, Mike, go ahead, Mike.
1 week ago today, actually, Patricia and I were in Washington, D.C., and there wasn't so much of a march, but there was a lot of people walking around in front of the White House and down 16th Street where the big yellow Black Lives Matter and such was. And I would say maybe 1/4 of the people there were not Black, which is encouraging, and hopefully that will increase. That's all.
Well, thank you for sharing. I think that's kind of a tenet of us as UUs. That's our social justice platform that we all believe in. Okay, anybody else want to share before we move on? Oh, Peggy, go ahead.
Hi, yeah. Try and get through it without crying. I feel so emotional about all of this. Well, I'm one of those who marched to end the Vietnam War in Washington a number of times, and I didn't know that I'd have the opportunity to at least witness another mass response to a social wrong that so badly needs to be corrected and has for so long. I can't go out and march myself, but my son is representing the family in the LA marches, and I'm so proud of him and glad that I get to share this with my kids. And I hope to God that this is the change we've been waiting for, the turning point in our historical record, and that going forward, we're going to see a different world, a different country because of this.
Thank you, Peggy. We're all praying for that. Thanks. All right, last chance. Anyone else, or shall we ready to wrap things up here? Oh, go ahead, Noreen. Did you want to share?
Peggy reminded me of the Vietnam era, and I worked in Washington for a year and a half for an anti-war group that its purpose was to get information about the people out to peace groups around the country. And I see a similarity today in that the more people get educated, and we've had plenty of education lately on TV if we turn the knob, the more people get educated, the greater and great chance of things really changing. And so the numbers of people on the street is very, very encouraging. It's beautiful.
Thank you, Noreen. We totally agree with that. All right, yes, go ahead.
Hi, so I apologize if my birds start making noise in the background. So this is something that I'm sure everyone's already aware of, but I just want to highlight, which is, I know the focus is on the change that needs to be affected, but the hope I see is that the biggest change has already happened, and that what we're seeing in the protests and how quickly everyone responded is a reflection that the hearts of the masses have already changed, that our thoughts and positions have already evolved. And so now we're watching that take its next steps in policies, but that mass consciousness has already moved wildly forward, and the quick response and the intense response of these protests and these peaceful protests is a reflection of that change having already established, which is wonderful. And that's what's going to drive us forward.
I agree with you. There's a lot of work to do, but we made great steps. Did you want to share, Patricia? Patricia, do you want to have turn to share?
I would love to. And I feel hope because for the first time, the movement is enlightening the greater population to what we've experienced for many, many years. But the best thing is that, you know, we're not expecting, and I don't want some token gesture from the government, you know, for justice and so forth. But the biggest thing I feel hope is that people's hearts are changing because they are now aware of, you know, the problem, the source of the problem, and how it impacts the lives of Black people every single day. And they're understanding. So hearts are changing, and not just in the United States, but all over the world, because this is not a problem that's isolated to this country. It's in Europe and in other places as well. And so we have, you know, although it started here, Black Lives Matter in the United States, but this is a tipping point, and other countries are now standing up for us because they're experiencing the same thing. So the fact that people's hearts are changing, you can't ask for more than that, because policy changes and legislative changes will follow, I am certain.
Thank you, Patricia. Yes, go ahead, Deidre.
Hi, I guess it's so strange because I feel like, I feel despair when I think about the fact that probably around the time I was born, my aunt and uncle, who were about 7 years younger than my mom, they were in college at Pitt in Pennsylvania. And my uncle, who is Black, was president of the student union. And you think, wow, that was a really cool thing. That was a really big time of change. And that was, you know, progress that we're going to build on. And now, you know, look, you know, what's not happened. And then I think about seeing young people march through San Diego. I mean, young people, like teenagers and 20-somethings, and of all colors, and lay down in the park, you know, to show that they're not going to tolerate this anymore. And I'm so proud of them. And probably the most hopeful thing I've seen in the last week, although I think it happened earlier than the last week, is a video that someone forwarded me, and it's a gentleman in DC who opened up his home to everyone. There were protesters that were caught in a block that they kind of couldn't get out of, and they were being, you know, pushed by police, and he opened his door, and like 70 strangers came in, and they spent 12 hours there because then it was past curfew, and they couldn't really leave again legally until the curfew had been over. And just how he talked about how everybody just really discussed things and got along and ordered pizzas, and you know, it was just the coolest thing. It was like the way it should be, that we do what it takes to stand up for what's right. So sometimes I'm hopeful, and sometimes I feel like, okay, we'll stay on the hopeful side. That's all I got.
Okay, yes, thank you. That was wonderful, hopeful sharing. Appreciate that. Okay, so I think that's everyone. So, okay, go ahead. Yeah, you're on. Oh, we can't hear you. You're muted. All right, can you unmute yourself? Yeah.
Yes. So my hope is that these peaceful protests and how big and diverse they are will be mirrored in a bigger voter turnout.
Yes, I agree. I think we all are hoping for that. Thank you for sharing that. Okay, so now we're going to switch back to Tina to extinguish our chalice. So Tina, would you please extinguish the chalice for us? And those of you at home, if you would like to extinguish your chalice too, do so now. So we extinguish this flame, knowing that its light remains in the warmth and compassion of our hearts until we are together again. Martin Luther King Jr. said, "We must accept finite disappointment, but never lose infinite hope." As this hour of worship comes to a close, may each of us go into the world with grit, grace, and most of all, go in peace. Most of all, hope. Go in peace. So let's end our service like we always do by singing together our song, Let There Be Peace on Earth. You will be muted at home, but feel free to sing along with Carole. Also, we have a virtual cafe afterwards. If you'd like to stick around for a chat, feel free to do so. Thank you all so much for joining us this morning. Carole? Thank you so much, Carole. Okay, so time for chatting. Anyone have something you want to chat about?